Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Taylor. Here. Alderman Kraut-Kramer. Here. Alderman Collier. Here. Alderman Keehan. Here. Alderman Zielinski. Here. Alderman Spencer. Here. Alderman Benner. Here. Alderman Nichols. Here.
The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing. It's a public hearing for a special use permit application by Smize Architects on behalf of Bethel Lutheran Church for the construction of an addition to the church and reconstruction of a parking lot at 829 Appleton Road. Director Buck, do you have anything to share about this?
Sure. The only thing I would add is that the church property is zoned R1 single family. In that district, churches require a special use permit. Bethel has been in operation since 1952, has not ever done anything that would require them to become conforming, I guess. They're legal non-conforming as it sits today. So this special use permit is really just to make their use conforming to the use regulations of the district. They also went through the Plan Commission at the last meeting on the 21st with the site plan approval for an addition as well, as the mayor mentioned.
Is there anyone here this evening that wanted to speak on the special use permit? Seeing no one, we'll call the public hearing to a close and we'll move on to public comments on any matter of concern to the city. If there's anyone who wishes to speak this evening, you can come to the microphone and state your name and address. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the report of department head, staff, and consultants. We have the minutes to receive this evening. Do we have a motion? Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I make a motion to receive minutes A through E.
There's a motion. Is motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item G is the consent agenda. There are 4 items this evening. The minutes to approve from the Common Council meeting of March 20th. The Board of Public Works recommendations from March 20th, including a recommendation to award contract 2017-01 for new concrete street construction on Province Terrace to Summers Construction for a cost of $293,073.34. The Plan Commission recommendation for the special use permit at 829 Appleton Road, and the Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue Joint Finance and Personnel Committee. Someday I'm going to get that right, Kevin. It's a recommendation from March 28th to fill the vacated firefighter position. Does anyone wish to have any of the items separated this evening? Apparently not. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 4.
It's a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item I is action items. The first item is the accounts payable and payroll for March 23rd through March 30th. Do we have a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve the accounts payable and payroll for the term of March 23rd through March 30th, 2017 in the amount of $609,484.71.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is for the beverage operators license applications for the 2015 through 2017 period. We have one this evening that was recommended for denial at this point, if I'm seeing everything correctly. Did I miss anything? Okay. Oh, there is. I'm missing one sheet.
It's on the back.
Ah, there we go. So we do have some that are recommended for approval as well as one for denial. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve the beverage operators license applications for the 2015 through 2017 licensing period as listed under approved in the police department's memo dated March 30th, 2017.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
There is one license that's recommended for denial this evening. Ms. Redkey is here this evening. If you'd like to speak, we welcome you at the podium.
Hi, I'm Kendra Retke. I was denied. I had received a DUI in September of 2015. I have yet to be sentenced for that because I was ordered to go through a treatment program, which I have now completed. And I believe I received underage drinking when I was 18. I was in college, made a poor decision along with the DUI, which was also a poor decision. But I've completed the treatment program and I'm looking to move on from that part of my life, so.
Does anyone have questions for Ms. Redkey? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If your license is denied, you know you can still bartend. Just can't be bartending alone.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure you do that option was
Yep.
out there. Thank you.
Attorney Captain, do you have a question as well?
I believe you indicate that it's a pending charge,
Correct.
and when's the next court date?
I have not yet received the court date. I went to court in March of 2016, and that's when I was told I have a year to complete the treatment program. It's pending because they are going to, if I complete the treatment program successfully, which I have, they're going to lower the BAC on the charge. So I'm waiting for the court date in the mail to go back to do that.
And when is that expected?
I thought it was supposed to be in March of this year, but I've reached out to the district attorney in Black Creek, and I've also reached out to the court, and they still don't have a date set for me to go back yet.
And when you say reached out, did you write them, or?
Nope, I've called them. I've talked to the district attorney mid-March. I just sent in all my paperwork for the treatment program mid-March, and he said he'd get in touch with me when the court date is actually set, so.
And this what exactly is the charge?
It's just a DUI. I don't really know. I received it in Black Creek. I was drinking and driving. That was,
So, is that your first offense?
yes, and last.
So when it says, have you ever been convicted of a criminal traffic offense? That would be no?
No. I wasn't sure how to answer that on there. I didn't know if a DUI would be considered a criminal traffic offense.
And that's why I wondered if it was the first one.
Yes, it is.
And what was the alcohol content?
I don't remember exactly, but I know it was over 0.2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have questions? Alderman Collier?
So you're living in Black Creek, you're planning on driving back and forth. You must need this job to help supplement your income or to go forward with some other plans?
I actually don't reside in Black Creek. I live in Appleton. I was actually just in Black Creek for Labor Day weekend, that weekend. But I live in Appleton, and I'd be traveling from Appleton to Menasha. I was working at Thrive Financial, but I actually just had my last day there on the 31st because I got a job coaching gymnastics at Ultimate Fusion on Appleton Road. So this is just kind of another part-time job because that's only part-time as well.
Well, I usually stand up and say, I think people, I don't want to use the word kids because I'm still a kid. People deserve a second chance, especially, and we're hard on people, and if somehow I persuade them to say, let you go forward and learn to be a bartender, a good bartender, and be responsible, that'd be something for you to go forward with and do. But I hope the Common Council looks at this as an opportunity to to prove yourself to the people around you, and I would hope that they would change their mind. I know the police department don't like it when I give my speech, but it's an opportunity for you to get some money
Yeah.
to go forward with your life and to be successful. So good luck, and I hope they give you your license.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? So at this time, we would be looking for either a motion for denial or approval, depending on what your pleasure is. Alderman Collier?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this lady for her bartending license in the city of Menasha.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, we need a roll call vote at this point.
Motion fails on roll call, 3-5.
So the license was denied. The police chief could help you out what the next steps would be, or what other things you could do, and how long you would have to wait before you'd apply again.
Okay.
If you want to talk to him.
Okay.
Item 3 is a Class B liquor license application for Plank Road Pub. Is there a motion at this time? No one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that might have helped too.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start over. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I'll move to approve the Class B liquor license application for Plank Pub LLC doing business as Plank Road Pub at 800 Plank Road, Menasha, with Kimberly Ann Hallbuck as the agent for the 2016 through 2017 licensing year.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item 4 is an outdoor serve permit for Plank Road Pub LLC. Do we have a motion? Might as well do both of them, Alderman Nichols, since you did the first one. Alderman Nichols?
I'll move to approve the outdoor serve permit for Plank Pub LLC for the 2016 through 2017 licensing year.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item 5 is a change of agent for the Knights of Columbus at 746 3rd Street. Do we have a motion? Alderman Benner?
Guess it's my turn, Mr. Mayor.
That works for me. If we just want to bounce back and forth at the end of the table, that works.
Make a motion to approve the change of agent for the Knights of Columbus at 746 3rd Street, Menasha, for the 2016-2017 licensing year.
So a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item 6 is a motion to remove from the table the master licensing agreement between the City of Menasha and Wisconsin Technology Networking. What was on the table when we left, I don't remember if we put it in here or not. Pardon? Okay. The clerk has the motion that was on the table. I'm sorry, I should have asked ahead of time.
Put this on the agenda.
Alderman Kramer did. I just wanted to be able to read what the motion was.
Apparently,
Okay.
it was too long.
So the motion was to authorize staff to enter into a licensing agreement with Wisconsin Networking Technology based on the terms and conditions acceptable to Menasha Utilities. And then it was postponed until the next common council meeting. So that would be the motion that was on the table. And Alderman Kramer, did you? That was the motion, though.
Yeah.
So did you want to make the motion to remove from the table?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll make the motion to, do I want to say remove from the table or?
Yes.
Retable, remove from the table master licensing agreement
Okay.
between the City of Menasha and Wisconsin Technology Networking LLC for the use of public right-of-way.
There's a motion and a second. And I believe this gentleman out. Oh, I have to have a vote first, sorry, to remove from the table. Oh, getting ahead of myself. There's no voting on that, no discussion, so if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Okay. The attorney did coordinate a representative here this evening, and I'll turn it over to her at this point.
For the Common Council, I did ask a representative from Mobilite who, I'll let him introduce himself to you. He does have a presentation if you would like to see the presentation. Otherwise, he is available here for questions. As I understand, at the last meeting, I did not attend. I was on vacation, and I was informed that the council still had questions that were unanswered. I had provided in the last council packet that this item was on the agenda a copy of the email exchange that I had received from the representative. It had laid out all the questions that I was aware of that the various council members had asked and what the response was. And so I asked if this item could be removed from the table, and the representative is here who, as I stated, is able to either answer questions and or provide a presentation if that's your pleasure.
So I would like to see the presentation if there's no objection to it, and we could let you introduce yourself maybe while we're doing that.
Yep. Well, while that's thinking, introduce myself. I'm Brent Mahalik.
And Brent, if we could have you at the microphone, or if you want to stand up here, you can use the wireless microphone too.
Yep. Just come around. Now that it's ready to go. Okay.
Is that good? You want another
Ow,
line
it
out?
hit my nose.
Is that okay?
Hit the knees underneath there. All right, to give you a, yep. There you go. There's City Hall. All right, again, my name is Brent Mahalik. I'm a permitting manager for a company called Mobility, and every single person that I've gone, or every single jurisdiction I've gone to, has always said it Mobilite. So I don't know if we should just change the name of it, or so. I want to thank you for allowing me to come and talk with you here. I've given this same presentation to over, it's got to be closer to 120 jurisdictions throughout Wisconsin. My area of Wisconsin is Sheboygan, through Fond du Lac, over to Stevens Point, up to up to Eau Claire, and then all the way up to Duluth. So I'm all of northern Wisconsin. I am located out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the company, again, is called Mobility, and I'll kind of explain quickly. I can do this rather quickly and then answer a whole bunch of questions. It seems like there's usually a whole lot of questions. So whether you want, Mayor, if you want to entertain questions as we go along, or I'm okay with either way. Okay. All right, so the company Mobility, also in Wisconsin, is known as Wisconsin Technologies Networking, and that's what you have on the agenda. The reason why it has the name of Wisconsin Technologies Networking is last year, the same time last year, the attorneys in our main office in California decided to change the names in all 50 states. We since realized it's probably a mistake, and they're all switching back to Mobility. So eventually, Wisconsin Technologies Networking will probably switch back to the name of Mobility, which it always has been. But on my cards, on my letterhead, on the information I handed out today, it's all Mobility. If you go to our website at mobility.com, you'll see a lot of the projects that we've been doing over the years. The company's been around for 12 years now. We're up over 1,200 employees. And this current rollout is what we're doing, is the main focus of the company today. In Wisconsin, we are, and the reason why I'm able to come and talk to you today about the use of your right-of-way is we are a CLEC company in Wisconsin and a alternate telecommunication carrier. Essentially that is we're a competitive local exchange carrier and alternate telecommunication carrier, and the carrier sometimes with the PSC is alternated with utility. So on the left of that, and I provide this information to your counsel, your legal counsel. To the left of that is our PSC recognition. So Wisconsin Public Service Commission has identified that we are indeed, can function as a utility in Wisconsin. So essentially whatever you do for your electrical posts, or any time that a fiber optic line goes in your right of way, you treat them the same as you would treat us. And the reason being, and I'll explain what we are and why we're that way, the utility is, we are becoming the fiber optic line in the air, okay? It's realized that over the years, the cellular carriers, right, we as, and I kind of blame myself as well, for the last 12 years I served as a planning and zoning director for a county. The last 5 years of that was in Sauk County, Michigan, or Sauk County, Wisconsin. And for the last year of that, I also served as the administrator for the county. So the company Mobility wanted people like me to be able to come out and talk to communities throughout Wisconsin and kind of sell what it is that we're doing and explain why we're interested in the community and why we want to make the investment in the community. But essentially what we are is we are the fiber optic line in the air, okay? We as planners and zoning administrators throughout the years, and it stands to reason, when you had the 300-foot mobile towers or the 200-foot mobile towers, we had to really push those off to the side lots, outside the cities. But as we were doing that, the carriers have had harder and harder time getting their signal into the downtown area, right, into the urban areas. It works really good for voiceover. So when you want to talk on your phone, you probably get really good phone reception. But as the use of data goes up and up and up, and I'll show you a slide that kind of lends itself to that. As the use of data continues to go up, they can't get the high-speed data signal into the area that it's needed. Okay, these few scattered towers that handle voiceover pretty well, they're having more and more difficulty handling the data portion. So what has to happen is we got to get the data signal into where it's being used. Okay, and that's where Mobility has come along. We're in all 50 states. Skip forward. We're in all 50 states. With the same CLEC status in all 50 states. It does mean something different in every state, but in Wisconsin it affords us the same rights or very similar rights to your power companies for the utility uses, and telephone companies and cable companies, all using your right-of-way. So, flipping back, this company has done a variety of things, and I'll just kind of skim over it. Right now we're in the transport and connectivity section. And that is, again, getting the signal into the areas that it's needed, which is the downtown areas. We've done a lot of large communication towers, DOS systems, Wi-Fi. If you go to our website, you'll see a lot of those uses on there. Okay, this is the problem. We're actually reaching kind of crisis levels when it comes to data and data serving. There's only a couple ways that you can increase data load in an area that's starting to fall short. And we get this when I visit a lot of the northern cities. When they have their summertime population come up, they seem to be able to explain really quickly what happens, right? When you're up in those areas, all winter long they're getting their data. The existing towers are able to handle their loads, right? But when it comes to summer and that population goes up and everybody's wanting to use the Netflix and check their emails and go on and do work from their vacation home, right? They're not able to get that signal up. The signal goes way down and it drops out. So that's why we've come along with what we're doing. We're getting that signal into the areas that it's needed because we need to increase capacity. There's two ways you can increase capacity. One is changing out the equipment, right? And all those towers are already operating in the 4G LTE technology, that upper level technology. And they're trying to angle that into the areas that it's needed. But with this technology, we're going to be out to the 5G ready, all right? And we know 5G, when it comes along in 2018, all the major carriers get together, 5G is going to be rolled out, and we know our equipment's already settled at that. So you can either increase your equipment capacity to handle more load and more data load, or you have to multiply out the number of posts or towers or receiving areas to multiply the amount of data that an area can get. So what we do, this is the problem that we've had, right? You see those big directional antennas. They're kind of broadcasting in specific areas and trying to get the data into areas that are more and more difficult to get data into. And you start to see the arrays on top of water towers and on top of buildings, right? Our solution is a little more streamlined than that. These are 120-foot transport poles, right? This handles the main load of data. And typically with the transports, there also is a series of what we call mini macros. These are 120 feet. The mini macros are 75 feet and smaller, all the way to street light attachments, right? So when we get into smaller and smaller neighborhoods, you get into the street light type attachment scenario or smaller posts of maybe 20, 30 feet. The direction that this technology is going, see, here kind of is a rough design of what the network looks like, right? You have a series of small cells that you see. I wish I could point at that. So you have the smaller poles you see, they're sending their signals to the larger transports, right? You see that transport in the middle? It's not hooked to a fiber optic line. The desire for all of our large transports is to hook them to a fiber optic line to eventually send the signal on through to the internet and on to our customers and then back through. So we've got the smaller cells that send the data to the larger transports, and the larger transports send the data around until it finds a transport that is on a fiber optic line. And then the fiber optic line can handle the main data and send it all out, right? And then bring it back to the end user. So our customers, and this is one of the reasons why we're not a utility. Which one? One in the middle, okay. All right, so we've got the smaller cells, and you see this is a larger transport, and I'm trying not to shake, but that ain't gonna happen. All right, so, and the larger transports sending the signal down through end up with our carriers, these end up with our call center out in Las Vegas. Incidentally, the mayor for Stevens Point was down in Las Vegas, and he did visit our call center. So we do exist, so if you want to call mayor to mayor, I'm sure he'd be willing to take your call. Then we also have these transports that aren't hooked to fiber optic. They shoot to another transport that is fiber optic. So eventually it gets through the whole system. Okay, so those are the large poles. This is a pole. This is a photo simulation of a pole in Marinette. It's actually built now. I just haven't gotten up that way to take the picture yet. But you can see on the right, there's an ATC transmission pole. So that's hauling large, streams of the electric system out to the grid. That's a 110-foot pole. That's a 75-foot pole on the left. The City of Marinette asked us to move it 10 more feet so that when I actually finally get out there and take the picture, it'll be 7 more feet, or 10 more feet, excuse me, off the right-of-way than where that pole is pictured there. But it shows kind of a good contrast and comparison. Wherever they are, we are too. The only difference is, if you look out on your city, you've got posts everywhere, right? You've probably got maybe 5,000, 6,000 posts in the ground in the right-of-way. Our impact is right now 3 posts. Now, I'm not going to say that's ever going to be the end of the impact, because this is the way the technology is going. It's got to get smaller and smaller to smaller and smaller posts to be able to handle more and more data. So we're eventually going to see maybe 1 or 2 posts in neighborhoods at some point. That's the way things are carrying us. For the next 5 years, our build-out is right now is at 3. We may have 1 or 2 posts that trickle in depending upon the data that's received by the center in Las Vegas to see how much we're getting overloaded or not overloaded on each individual pole. But as the data starts to come in, we'll probably need to start going into those neighborhoods. And that's where That's where the data is going. That's where the future is taking us with this technology. So we've set up poles in Houston during the Super Bowl. You can see that there. The one on the left is a 75-foot metal pole right in the right of way as you approach the stadium. The one on the right is a little bit shorter. I think that's a 35, 40-foot pole. Our typical pole, the 75-footers, have an antenna on top, a UA relay, and a distribution or an AC, just a meter on them. And that's just about it. And you have the remote radio relay. So you just have these couple pieces of equipment, and then there's a line of electric drawn to it. The only thing that's needed for these things to work is electrical line. Even with the transports, just an electrical line. Of course, one of the transports we want to hook into a fiber, right, or a couple of them, but all that's needed is an electrical line. So you're going to have less impact to your streets. We're not digging up anything. If your direction is to bury the electric, that's what we're going to do. We'll bury the electric to these posts, and then all you have is a post. You won't have any overhead vertical lines drawn to it, which is really a reason why your eyes are drawn to a lot of the posts in sequence, is because there's these horizontal lines of electrical lines drawn between them. So this is a lower impact. Eventually we get down to streetlight attachments. The City of Green Bay has recently approved 6 poles, 4 attachments to WPS-owned poles, 1 attachment to a city-owned pole, and 1 new pole in the City of Green Bay. City of Green Bay build-out is 31 poles right now, and that's what we're looking at for that area. Poles located here. Got this one located near the Piggly Wiggly. This one over by the, is it Goodwill? Thank you. This one is over kind of in your commercial area, industrial area over by the train tracks. I'm trying to think, it's on Milwaukee Avenue. Yeah. So there's large utility lines there, and it sort of fits in with that. All right, so here's that location. And, we previously had it posted out here, but after talking with the employees, they wanted to get it off the main stretch, so we located it over to the side. And here's a photo simulation of what that would be. That currently is a 75-foot pole. Here's the one by the Goodwill. There's the photo simulation. You can see the pole right out here. It's that 120. All right, this one's going to be viewing it from the north facing south. And scale it, you can see there's some post in the background there. That's probably about a 75-foot post there, probably close to one there, and then I know those get a little taller behind it. It's sort of in sequence with what you see down that stretch. That's 120. So I want to bring up just a couple quick maps of what it looks like. Picturing that setup, this is a great way to kind of look at it. You see the City of Green Bay, as you get toward the center of Green Bay, and you need to multiply out the frequency, get more data into an area, you see more and more posts. This is a combination of new posts and streetlight attachments and all kinds of things. Everything from the 75-foot pole all the way down to a 30-foot streetlight attachment. On the outskirts, you see these transport poles, which are handling that main chunk of the data that's being sent to them. And that's being sent out and brought back. Let's go to, I pulled out of Gamey County. Obviously, in Menasha, we've got a pole right here in Outagamie. No, it's right here. So it's not in Outagamie County, it's right in that area. Another one there, and well, I'm not going to be able to hold steady enough. So, and then of course, we're working out with Nina now. There's 3 posts or poles in Nina as well. There are 2 of the transport poles, which are the tall ones, and 1 mini macro by the hospital. So that's what we're looking at in Nina right now. Menasha's got 3. Appleton's got 22. When you get to the outskirts, Grand Chute, we're looking at 12. When you get over to, let's see, Little Chute, we're looking at 3 poles so far there, and then you can see the pennant scattering as you go further out. Okay. I'm sure you get a lot of questions. I can tell you one of the fun projects that we're working on. Village of Howard, this is why we really look at ourselves as a partnership. The Village of Howard, they had a need by their village hall to be able to put they were going to have to build it themselves. They needed a 105-foot pole near their village hall. All right. They needed to connect their DPW, which is 2.5 miles away as the crow flies, to their village hall. One of our 120-foot poles was just around the corner, probably about a quarter mile away. And it was we worked it out with the village that we'll locate our pole right next to the village hall where they can attach their equipment, their microwave dish at 105 feet to shoot to their DPW. So now we're putting a pole there, they don't have to pay for a pole, and we're letting them, obviously attach their equipment and run the system so they can connect their DPW in their village hall. So we're doing little things like that throughout. Grand Chute, we're looking at traffic cameras, it's an idea. Sturgeon Bay and Door County, they're looking at EMS attaching at 80 feet to our transport poles. So, as things kind of move along, that's kind of the partnerships that we like to build and fun projects that I like to be part of. So, all right, I'm sure you'll have lots of questions.
Okay, are there some questions? Alderman Spencer?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming in this evening to go through this with us. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions and a request.
Sure.
Will this service be available to all cell phone servers, or how does that work?
Yep. Okay. The one thing, I forgot to mention during the presentation, so it's a great question. We don't have end user customers, right? So our customers are the carriers themselves. Okay. So whatever carrier signs on for our service, and we do have, and I can say it now because you can find it anywhere. Sprint is our first major customer. The others are looking at our system. So with Sprint being our first major customer, if you had a Sprint case, yes, you're going to be one of the first ones we have to use that service and that system. But we're open to the other customers coming on board. Okay. So yeah, right now you have to have some sort of internet service provider, like a carrier, that can send the data through our system. We're essentially like a dark fiber. When you think of, I think that seems to be a common term nowadays. We're essentially a dark fiber until some ISP signs onto it to be able to send down through our strands of fiber, if you will.
Okay. I think you may have answered my second question, which was, will this make Wi-Fi service available at street level?
Yes. We have, and here's the caveat. My sister has, I think she's got Verizon, right? She gets herself a Wi-Fi hotspot that goes through the Verizon system, right? So yes, she's able to get service. She's way up north in Mountain, I believe. She's able to get service through that, to have all of her internet systems, all of her Netflix, all of her emails, everything comes through that. So yes, if someone is going to buy onto one of those carrier systems, then yes, you'll be able to get that high-speed system.
Okay.
Yep.
And my request, and you've done a great job going over a lot of detail of the service and the plan. I think it'd be helpful, particularly for the folks watching tonight, if you could give like a 30-second summary as to how this will directly impact the citizens of Menasha in a positive way. Thank you.
Sure. Essentially, and I did hand out the sheet that went around. But essentially, as data continues to move along, as new technologies come along on their phones and on their data, everybody's using these things for their personal lives. They're also using it for their banking. They're also using their laptops are now hooked directly through their phones a lot of times. So wherever they're using data, they're going to benefit from it. So whatever businesses are coming in and using that kind of data as a link through, you're going to be able to do things like work at home, work in the park, work wherever. Plus the new inventions that are coming out. The Uber drivers, the whole Uber app wouldn't have been possible without the use of phones through the whole system, right? We don't know what the next step is going to come along. I don't know if somebody at Nina's going to, or Menasha is going to come up with some next great thing. But even the Uberless, or the Uber cabs that are driverless now in a number of cities, they're test marketing it. Those are all coming. And this is the type of high-speed data system and transfer that's needed to make that stuff work. So it's going to improve, it's technology, it's going to improve lives. Unless, of course, you don't like technology. That's another story altogether. I'm just hoping you guys aren't going to break my record. It's been unanimous everywhere I've gone for approval on this. Hint, hint.
Alderman Collier.
So you're going to put X towers in Menasha?
Yes. Currently 3.
3 to start, no taller than 75 feet?
The mini macros, the smaller ones that handle kind of the main boot of the data, or the main amount of the data, those are only 75 feet and smaller. I think eventually if they get into the neighborhoods, they're going to be smaller again, because you don't want a 75-foot pole in front of somebody's house. In fact, I've already kicked some of those back when they're in front of somebody's houses. So, but the transports, there's 2 transports right now that are being proposed in Menasha. And those are the 120-foot poles.
And those are not in residential areas?
Not on those maps, no. You saw where they're located.
So you can't give me a guarantee that eventually you won't put something in a residential area?
Or this company will not.
They will not put it in
No.
front of my house?
No.
Okay.
No. If it comes down that we're going to be putting in neighborhoods, we've reduced those sizes to like 40 feet, 30 feet. In Green Bay, I can show you a couple that are right outside apartment complexes. We're not at 75 feet with those, we're doing 30 feet. There's appropriate locations for this. Me, my planner background, I've kicked a number of these things back. We do not want to be doing that.
You, so you got sites like out by Goodwill, along the highway, nothing really dead in the city unless if they're short. You said you could put them off of existing poles. Would that, would our Christmas stuff or flags on poles interrupt with your stuff, or you'd be above them?
No, what we do, when it comes to attachments, there's a couple of ways to do attachments. And quite frankly, usually attachments are not the right word to be using. Typically, it comes down to having to replace the pole itself. So, for instance, in downtown Deep here, our equipment on the side of the post, and you saw a couple of quick flashes of what that looks like. The equipment on the side of the post wasn't sturdy enough to handle our equipment, right? So when the wind's blowing, it gets the wind shears and vibrations, and you got to have it sturdy enough, right? So what we do is we beef up the pole. We mimic the exact same pole that you have there in that case. So whatever decorative pole you have, and then whatever location you have for flags or attachments or whatever else, we do that as part of our calculations to put that stuff and equipment on it, including the outlets and everything. We return it the way it was. So we're all behind that. We want to make sure we fit in the community.
So I have roughly 17 to 20,000 people, let's say in the next 20 years, which is way out there, if I get 5 more thousand people. How many towers would a city of 25,000 need?
It depends upon how much data they're using, right? The more that they're going to use, the more data that's going to be needed.
Well, you can only put so many people and so many businesses in a city.
Yeah. So the answer to that is simply we don't know until, okay, once the information's coming back, we know that these are needed based on our current clients' needs, right? They're our first signing up for our system, so we're starting to build it out to some of their desires right now. But as more clients jump on, there may be other needs, right? So we first build it out to that spec. The next step is collecting the data to find out what's being overloaded, right? As the data comes in and as we use that data, it's going to exponentially climb. Then we'll know exactly how many more poles we're going to need, and we'll come back and sit down with your employees and pinpoint locations that it's going to fit within the neighborhoods.
So you're saying there's going to be, let's just say 5 nice towers in Menasha would cover the area, which is probably Menasha's, we're going to say, what is it, 7 by 7 miles?
Yeah, but the trade books are all saying that you're probably going to see at least 1 pole in every neighborhood in the future. So I'm not going to hold any illusion that we're going to come in with just 5 poles and that's going to be it. We want to develop the relationship, be in the community, and stay with this. We're a utility company that's going to be here a long time.
Boy, I hope you have a great relationship with Fox Crossings, Hilbert, and everybody else, because I really don't want them in Menasha.
Yeah.
And I understand what you got to try to do, but until I get more information and see how it's going around in other Needham, Appleton, other places, and talk to some other people, I'm not big on your idea, but I'm slow on computers, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
what can I
and
say?
that's okay. In Green Bay, again, we have 31 poles. We've currently got 6 approvals. The other applications are working their way through. We're going to have those built out pretty soon. You can see 1 pole currently up in Appleton, or actually it's in the town of Buchanan, just outside Appleton by the Panda Express, and I want to say what it is, the Lowe's is out that way. So we already have the 75-foot pole there. Fond du Lac, there's a 75-foot pole up in Fond du Lac.
In the city?
In the city, yep.
Like on Johnson Street or whereabout? You know?
I'd have to look it up again, but I can find out for you. So yes, they're all starting to go up. Our goal is to get as many of these things built within the next quarter. So I would predict, probably Green Bay, you're going to see most of those built by the end of summer. We're moving fast. I mean, this is the type of thing, it's needed now, so we're moving fast now. Yeah.
So putting it out by the highway wouldn't help Menasha? Out by
You
Calder
gotta get
Stadium
into,
places?
you got to get into where the data is being needed,
Well, if,
where the data is
I'm looking
needed.
at if I got a tower within 2 miles of me, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's the old kind of school thinking.
Yeah?
That's that directional antennas, and that's the reason why we have to come to this.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Tough
we as
changing old
planners,
school.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We as planners have kicked them out into the outskirts, and that's the old technology. They can't get their signal in. That's the problem. So we have to be able to add poles and locations that the data is being needed.
So what you're saying is there's no alternatives to the poles?
Not to kick the signal up in the air. That's where you have to get it. You got to get it where these things are being used, where your smart cars are, where your utilities are possibly using this type of system. There's several communities that are starting to use that in-air, like water utility, right? So you have to get it where it's being used. It simply, you can't tie it to a wire, you can't plug a wire into the phone and drive around town. It's got to be in a place that they're using it. It's got to get up into the air. The only way you can do that, scattered towers are not going to be able to handle the data. They just can't. So that one tower is trying to handle the load for all of the data being used in the downtown center. It's just not going to work.
I'm not trying to spur you,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get
No,
information.
It's good questions, but that's where we have to start rethinking what we're doing. 'Cause we've been trained on old cellular technology for so long now. Now we got to start looping back. Other countries, they've gone reverse of what we're doing.
Well, I'm scared that once you get your foot in the door, all of a sudden I got one, I had 920 Appleton Street, and it just reduced the price of his property, and it's an eyesore for him, and then I got to listen to everybody complain that it came in my district first.
Yeah, and
So
our
Fox
system.
Crossing's looking better all the time.
Yeah, our system's a little bit more thin line. They're a lot shorter than your cellular poles that are out there. Still, 120 feet, that is still a pretty tall pole. But when you compare that pole to what the alternatives have been, it's a lot better looking than what you saw with the directional antennas.
Okay.
Yeah, the answer I guess I would have is your citizens are using it. They're the ones that want it.
Yeah, but nobody wants it in the front yard.
It's always an NIMBY, yes. But again, we can scale it differently for when you get toward neighborhoods and that. And I think the agreement that we're looking at outlines all of those rules, right? This company's kind of a little different. We don't really have to go through the agreement process, right?
I know.
And that's one of the things that Green Bay, their DPW said very clear in the open meeting was this company, Mobility, is doing it differently. We're giving up a whole lot of things by going through that agreement process because we want to be good neighbors. We want to make sure we're doing it right in the community. So that's your best chance to get it right is by going through that agreement process.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Can you tell us about using existing buildings or other things in lieu of new poles?
Yeah, and our company is a CLEC ATU. We utilize the right-of-way, all right? So that's the first thing. We're in the right-of-way. To use anything outside the right-of-way starts to go against what we went through the process of gaining in the first place, which was the utility status. So by working on that, yes, we'll work in the right-of-way. We'll look at alternatives within the right-of-way. Maybe there's some city, you have a city light. We can work with them, do attachments in those areas when we start getting into those neighborhoods. And I think city-owned attachments are probably a way to go, because our company does also pay a fee to rent those facilities. It's like $2,000 a antenna. Sure. So we can do that, but if we go, once we go off, let's say we go to a water tower that's on municipal-owned property, you're going to want that space for your carriers, not necessarily for the high-speed data that we are. We're saying our use is in the right-of-way. That's where we're focusing.
There'd be some locations that'd be a lot less objectionable, potentially on city property that would be nearby, rather than right tight up against the road. And I guess that was one of my questions as well.
Well, and there's two ways to answer it. The first is there's a lot of utility poles in your right-of-way, right?
And people don't like those either.
Yeah, they don't like those either, but our position is we're a much smaller footprint compared to the numbers of poles that you already have, right? So that's the first way to look at it. So yeah, they're in the right-of-way, but yet, so is every other utility. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. The other way is, it's possible to do similar to what Howard had done. They widened their right-of-way to make room for our pole. When I was talking about that, the agreement that we worked out, essentially they widened their right-of-way 10 feet, 50 feet back to put our pole. And that's what they did to make that space the same functioning as the right-of-way. So that's always a possibility, if that's what the city wishes to do. But again, not all, the other problem with that is, and we can work at and look at those locations, but if we don't need a pole in that location, then it's not going to
I
work at that
understand that
point,
as
right?
well, yes.
So, but we shared, I think we shared our locations with the staff as we go forward, and we'll do that every time.
Okay.
I'll come in, we'll share with the staff, and we'll find if there's an opportunity to potentially widen your right-of-way to include us. Yeah.
I understand there is a lot of benefits for you being in the right-of-way too, and a lot of different rules if you're in
Oh, yeah.
an easement versus a right-of-way. That's kind of what the question was more about,
Yeah, and we stick with the right-of-way again
because of your
until
status.
something changes with the status.
Sure.
That's our mode of operation.
Okay.
It's a new type of utility. It's kind of exciting. How many times has a utility like this come along? Probably Ma Bell was the last major one, and then you had the cable companies and some fiber companies coming along, but really, we're kind of in that next step. Same sort of function.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your background in community development, and it sounds like you're traveling a lot lately.
Yes, I have been.
So, if that's starting to affect you a little bit, we have a great position open for a building inspector in our
Yeah.
community development department, so
Well,
just
send me some numbers.
keep that in the back here. Give the mayor a call and crunch some numbers with Dave back here.
Oh, funny.
We'll see what we can do. Mayor, this is, again, a violation of council rules to pass this
There
out.
is not a council rule that says that.
To pass out the,
There is not, no.
we'll look that
Yeah,
up.
if it was addressed on the agenda, I just figured it's the same
So,
thing.
when do you think you're going to energize your network? When is your goal for that?
Every time a pole goes up, it's set to go.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. What is the voltage to the pole?
It's the same as, well, it's 60 watts, so it's just your standard 120, 220.
I think in Menasha here, we have an opportunity to do the right thing the first time through the gate here. And always for me is our employee safety and public safety is first and foremost. The pole you have here on State 47, I see these poles, any pole in the city, and I understand we have to have a network of poles as a road obstruction. Somebody could hit it, somebody could get killed. And the difference between your poles and our poles are somebody breaks off our pole, you have a network of wires that'll hold that pole up. It might be sheared off, but it's not going to collapse. And this pole out here on like State 47, a lot of cars through that corridor every day. Situation, if that pole got sheared off or something, you got a 120-foot pole falling into the right-of-way.
It won't fall.
Okay. But what I'm saying here is you have this at a crucial junction in this right before the roundabout. There's people making lane assignments at that time. And if that pole could be put back, and that state property could be put back maybe 20, 25 feet behind to the west of that sidewalk, we take that pole out of the direct fire of traffic. Somebody could spin out, hit that pole there. Just up the road here on the curve by Secura, we had a pole on that point there. 6 times it was sheared off until somebody had the idea to move it back 20 feet. And in the last 20 years, it hasn't even been sheared off one time.
Sure.
So to me, that's a serious obstacle. And if we can move that back onto the state property there, I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, if there's right of way, we can definitely do that. That location is the approach lane. So, I mean, you're not engaged in the roundabout yet. In fact, that location's not even in the approach lane of the roundabout. That's in it's in the right lane to go
Right.
on go on the highway.
But there's-
so there's no additional.
But we know how everybody
decisions.
makes their lane changes. At the last second, you get 3-lane Charlie going from the left lane to the right lane, and you get serious accidents out there. And all I'm saying is that it's in a bad spot. And for the future, if we do this right the first time, everybody's safe. I know prevention doesn't get a lot of pats on the back because you never know what you prevent. But if we can move that pole back on state property, 25 feet behind that sidewalk, I'd be happy with that.
And again, is there state, or is there right of way there? I guess we'd have to find that out.
Yeah, you'd have to
So if there's right of way, we'd definitely look at that.
go out there and find that out.
And then,
the second one is the one on Milwaukee Street here.
Well, and could I just answer the question about
Yeah.
the pole? The poles are not going to move. These poles are solid. I was told you could have a semi-truck hit it, and it's not going to move.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two reasons. Anything that's that height has to be built to withstand impact.
Okay.
So that's why it's
Well, I'm
it's
glad
there
to
and
hear
it's
that
built
it's
solid.
not gonna free fall and hit
Yeah, it
somebody
will
else.
not fall over.
But the location, let's see if we can get it off the road right away, because I don't want somebody, never say never, but it happens. And if we can eliminate these obstacles,
But-
great.
And again, going forward, though, all of our poles, just like all of the other poles, are in the right of way. You know what I mean? That's
I
where we
understand
function.
that.
So I agree, though, this is pretty
But
close to the road surface.
If we can
isn't it?
eliminate that, and a lot of times we like to put ours underground if we can do that
Sure.
in areas. So I'm just saying, I think it's at a very, very, very poor location for
We can-
this area here.
We can work with city staff to see if there's room there. If there's DOT right-of-way, another option can be, we're working through our agreement with the DOT, which should be signed by the end of this month. If it gets moved 50 feet onto like DOT right-of-way,
Yeah.
it's still within the city, so what the DOT has asked us is to get sign-off from the city saying that's where we would prefer it, and then DOT will look at it on their end. But they want that sign-off first from the city to say, it's okay with us to put the pole in our city at that location, then the DOT will look at it for us.
The best spot is just to move it down the road here a couple hundred feet into this, where the traffic's turning up on the 441, so you have reduced speeds at that point, and it's further to the northwest, so now you're completely out of the traffic problems here. But back here, you look at, somebody jumps that curb, pow, you know? If you could save a life or an
Sure.
injury, why not?
Yep.
Okay, the second pole was on Milwaukee Street. I'd like to see that pole go back onto our Menasha utility property, which is just 100 yards away, and that borders between Milwaukee Street and Racine Street. And there's a lot of room on that campus to sink a pole out there, and it'd be right on our utility property, and that gets it out of the, again, gets it out of the street right away, a little
Yeah,
safer.
We can work with staff for that, if that's an option.
Okay,
What we would ask or request is that, right away get identified at that location
okay. And
somehow. Even if it's just on the other side of the fence or something, let us know that.
And then the third one on Parkside, if we can go to the west, as far as to the west with that pool. There's not sidewalk put in there yet, so I don't know if we're going to have a sidewalk put in out there. And so we should kind of address that one too with the sidewalk coming. And maybe we can go just a little bit to the west, further to the west on that pole. And I think we
Yeah, I
have an opportunity.
These smaller poles, once we have kind of a location in our system, I could move them up to like 15 feet without sending through our recycling. Recycling on our end usually takes, quite a long time. So if we could avoid that, the big posts I could move 50 feet without recycling, the small posts I could move 15 feet without sending it through our system. But we can work with that.
Okay, I think we also, there's no doubt that the data we have now is kind of how your system's set up. But we all know in 5 years, 10 years, that the data with the autonomous car is going to push this thing right over the cliff because of the amount of data that system is going to use. So to be proactive with that amount of data coming, and to tax your system.
Yeah.
We're going to need a lot more poles in the city.
Oh,
And
oh,
I would
yeah.
hope that, for instance, at the city garage, we have a tower at the city garage that we could, like you said, maybe put your equipment on.
Definitely the scattered poles are not going to meet the data needs in the future. We're going to have to just get down to the neighborhood levels at some point here. And with that, there's two ways, the nice thing about the system, there's two ways to increase that data in the future. We just swap out the equipment for the latest stuff. That's one option. Or as we collect data, we need more pole locations. We'll know that, then we add poles to multiply all the data. So there's two ways to get that done.
Okay. But there's certainly a lot more polls coming, and I appreciate you being here and listening to us, and I would like to see first if we can accommodate, if you can come back and let us know if we can accommodate this poll on Highway 47.
Well, again, this is all through the agreement, I think, that we're talking about. The agreement will work with that, and we'll work with the employees to handle that portion. The agreement, I think, is what you guys are looking at now.
But this is part of the agreement, and I'm not, I'm not,
Actually, no individual poll is part of the agreement.
okay.
Yeah, the way the agreement's written up at the end, when we submit new polls, because if you tie the agreement to each individual poll, then we're here working on each individual poll every time, and that's going to just bog your time down. So we work on the agreement and the ground rules, right? Here's what happens, and then when we go to submit for a poll, we fill out the Appendix A and B. It's, here's the data that we need, plus here's the location that we're looking for. Here you go. You guys take a look at it, staff-wise, and we'll sit down together and figure out a location. That's the best way that it's kind of handled, and then we work through the agreement on the other.
Yeah.
Individual.
You don't waste our time up here, because we're the people's voice, and the people have a right.
Yep.
And when you put one of these 120-footers in near somebody's house or in their yard,
Yep.
we hear about it. So we all work in conjunction up here to what's best for the city. And I think we need to make the decision on where these poles are put. And I have no problem with that. I don't think anybody else does, because until it affects you or somebody in your district, then it's a problem. So if we can stay proactive, stay ahead of the game here, make sure that we got public safety in mind first, and maybe aesthetics or a different location to work with your network. How far can a pole right now be moved with your? I think these three are probably okay for what the city needs, but in the future, when you want to put a pole in, how far can that pole be moved before it's in it?
Yeah, we come in with a location, and then we come in with an area that we want to look for. And then we sit down with staff to kind of figure out where in that area that we can fit it. And that's how we kind of work. I mean, every time that I've sat down with DPW directors from all of those locations, and we've ironed out proper locations for the poles. So
Okay.
we spend time with that.
I know I know Neenah and Appleton are having some issues with the poles right now, and Neenah had postponed their meeting last Wednesday. They didn't take action on it.
No, we're not yet going to Neenah yet. We haven't been in front of Neenah yet.
So if I understand the process correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
As a utility, just like We Energies or Menasha Utilities or Time Warner Cable or any of those places, you have the right by state statute to use those right-of-ways. And you can place a pole in those right-of-ways if you so, unless we can demonstrate that there's some health and safety reason or some other reason why it can't go there. What you're doing with this agreement is allowing the city to tell you where the most desirable places for those poles are, so you can try to work with us to create the most desirable spot for a pole rather than just plunking them in wherever it might happen.
Yeah, we don't want to use any strong arm with this at all. I mean,
But
we really want to
technically, you
work
have
with
that ability to do that if you really wanted to.
Technically, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not what we're doing.
So.
It's not what we're building here.
Bringing it back to the council every single time to get approval for a pole isn't what's going to happen regardless.
No, well, what's desired in the agreement is we work with staff to figure out
Exactly.
locations.
So we're going to tell you that we'd like to see them at least X back from the curb, or we'd like to see this, or we'd like to see this height or that height in these areas. And then you're going to work with staff to try to in the most number of cases, get them within those parameters.
And I don't think staff should have that ability without notifying the council about the situation. You know, it's all fine, Mayor, until you stick one out in
Well, I understand that.
District 8 or District 7, and those people are much more vocal out there, and then there's there's an
I
issue
understand
to it,
that, but
because
if
they
we-
want a certain lifestyle out there that they invested in out there.
I
But when you
get it.
start putting these 120-foot poles out there,
I
you're
get
gonna
it,
hear
Alderman
about
Taylor, but what we're trying to tell you is if we don't come up
I
with some sort of
understand exactly
agreement,
what you're saying.
he can plop them wherever he wants
And
and
I'm
not
not here
even
to
come to
debate
the
you, Mayor. I
council.
have the floor and I'm asking questions, and I appreciate your input, but it shouldn't be just a slam dunk like that. And I would like to okay this plan, yeah, but I would also like to have the two of the three, well, the third pole, two, could be moved to the west. I would like to have this taken, like I said, see if we can move it back closer to that intersection on the state property, get it out of the line of fire, and then the utility, the Menasha utility, to locate that one on their property, just 100 yards away from where it is on Milwaukee Street. That's fine with you?
Well,
So, did you want to?
I had a question. Is
I
that-
think that's something we can work with staff with. I mean, definitely. I mean, I think they've all been here and took notes on it. We can work out locations.
But we're not approving locations tonight. We're approving general ground rules as to how poles will be placed. And then you would talk to staff each time that a pole would be placed, even though you don't have to.
Yeah, and we've already done that with some of
Exactly.
these locations. Like I said, they moved it to the side of the Big League store. We located a spot over on Milwaukee rather than in residential neighborhoods where we originally had it.
Exactly.
And even this location by the, no, actually, this location seemed to still be pretty good. It's a commercialized area over by the Goodwill. Maybe, like you said, maybe moving a little bit further back, maybe something we can take a look at and see what the state might think, but
The mayor wants to continue to debate me, but the issue here is that these poles are on this document here. This is where you're saying you want to put them. This is where we're saying we don't want them right now, so I don't see why we can't put in the motion, and you guys come back and let us know if you can accommodate that.
well, I don't think they're in the document. There's the agreement that you have in front of you, and then there's a report that I think.
So you're saying you're not going to work with us then?
No, I am saying we're going to work with you. But there's a first piece that shows where the poles are located, because I think there was questions as to that, and I think your city attorney outlined where those were. And then the other portion is the agreement process
Okay, so
that's
we're
in
doing the
that.
agreement, but we're not doing the placement of the poles at this time.
No, well, those are the desired locations of mobility, and we can still
But
work with
if we
with
do this
your staff.
agreement tonight, if we okay this agreement for clarity, are you going to go placing these poles before you come back to the council?
Every council that I've been to, City of Green Bay, City of De Pere, I'm trying to think of several other, they worked through and they agreed to the agreement process. Ladysmith was another. And they worked through and agreed upon an agreement process that we can go forward with this type of agreement. They've sent some general locations, but in each case, the agreements stood, and then each individual pole goes through like a DPW or some sort of team of employees that look at the locations with us to iron it out. But they've never gone back to the council. But again, if that's the desire, maybe that is what you wish to do with each pole, but frankly, I think it's going to get a little bit cumbersome for you guys to be deciding where or where not to put utility poles. If you don't do that, here's kind of the general rule. If you don't do that with any other utility, then why would you do that with this utility?
Okay. So, make me feel comfortable tonight here before we vote on this. You will come back to the city and you will let us know if these locations can be changed.
Yes, I will communicate with your city staff. I think you got a planner and some others and your attorney and whoever else you wish to assign on your city employee staff. We can work through the process and make
And
it
I
work.
would like-
They can report it back to you, I'm sure.
I would like for that to go through the council the first time to see if we get what we want, that we don't have to be leery of the situation that we may not get what we want. And so I would
Sometimes-
like to make a motion.
You
Yeah, to
can make
find
an
it on
amendment,
the
Alderman Taylor,
agenda.
if you'd like.
I got too much written on there. Okay, we did remove from the table, and I'd like to make a motion to approve a master licensing agreement between the City of Menasha and Wisconsin Technology Networking LLC for the use of public right-of-way.
Okay, that's the motion that's on the floor right now. You don't need to make that motion, but if you want to amend it, you can do that.
Okay, but I would like to make an amendment to that these first 3 polls come back to the council to see if the placement has changed. And to put in the safety aspects of it that I think are necessary for this placement.
So I'm not sure what exactly that safety portion of that means.
Well, I said with the placement.
Placement
and then
is
I just
fine.
added to I just said that we make sure we have the safety placement of it. So let's just leave it at that we have the placement that I asked for to see if we can accommodate that.
So the motion is to approve the agreement and require the first 3 polls be
Okay.
approved by the common council.
Right. See what that comes back as, and let's see what they can do for us.
Okay, so the amendment is that the first 3 poll locations be approved by the common council.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Is there
First time through the hoop, let's see what we get.
There's a motion and a second. Was that Marshall or Alex? Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? Attorney Captain? I should say on the amendment.
There is a process in place right now. It's a permitting process. There's actually 2 permits if someone wishes to put something in the right-of-way. One is, boy, and you're going to have to help me with, what's the name of it? Street use permit and then the excavation. So there's 2 permits. It's done at the staff level. What happens is somebody comes in, they fill out the application, as long as they meet the requirements with insurance, et cetera, locates and whatever are done, then they're granted permission to do it. That's the process that the city has in place when it deals with the right-of-way and with utilities. What is before you is an offer from the company to enter into a license agreement. It has nothing to do with the locations of the poles or anything like that. It really is dealing with things such as insurance requirements, what the procedures going to be as far as the what we're going to require for the company to show us that the pole that they're putting up can support what it is that they are putting on it. If they're going to do pole attachments, they need to show their reports that demonstrate that the pole is sufficient to hold whatever is on the pole, and if it needs to be changed out or something like that, then the company is going to replace the pole, put a different pole up, put what we had on it, and put their attachments on it. It's going to deal with things like abandonment of poles, or when they need to come down, what the area is going to be like with regard to safety and construction in that area. So it's going to deal with all of those things, not specifically with the location of the pole, because we already do have a process for that. And all it is filling out those two permit applications, which is why I brought this to your attention in the first place, because I thought you might want to know that there is a request for these poles. And my reason for bringing it to you is to inform you about that, and to also ask if, because the company was looking at putting in the 120 to 120-foot poles and 175-foot pole, if your preference is to have them at 90 feet, of course there would, they'd have to reconfigure, et cetera, and there would be more. That is, something that we were doing at the staff level, but we wanted to make sure that the Common Council had a voice in the, number of poles, because that was pretty significant as far as the height is concerned. As far as that goodwill and moving that location, I know that staff did ask them if it could be moved back further. And I don't know if you...
I don't think there was enough right-of-way there.
That was my recollection. Was that there wasn't enough right-of-way in that location. We had asked them if they could put it back farther. So just so you know, we did ask that question, and I think I did mention it to the Common Council before. And the one on Milwaukee Street, and this may be a little bit of miscommunication that I'm hearing, moving it, the company is not saying that they would be willing to put it onto our property, utility property, out of the right-of-way. The company has already indicated, and it kind of makes sense, I would be doing the same thing. They have special rights and laws and regulations that apply to them through the Public Service Commission if they're in the public right-of-way. And so they don't want to be outside of the public right-of-way. And I believe that what you were just discussing here, Mobility has indicated a willingness to move it within the right-of-way, but closer to the utility, not actually on the utility property. Is that
Yeah,
your understanding?
As long as the area is still right-of-way, we can move it within that right-of-way.
Right.
And like I said, what Howard did is they widened their right-of-way for that one pole location. So it was unusual, but it offered them a way to do it.
And you're not saying that you're willing to put it actually onto the utility property if it is not within the right-of-way?
Yeah, we are looking for the right-of-way.
Okay. And I just thought that I heard some misunderstanding there, and I wanted to ensure that everyone was clear on that.
And then as far as pole heights, you'd mentioned, if, our poles come in 30-foot sections, the tall poles. So we got 120 feet, and then we also have a 90-foot. We can look at the option at 90 to see if it fits, but sometimes what happens is if you lower the height, you might multiply out the number of poles. So we don't know what that would do to the system, but only our RF engineers got to work that through if we decide to lower the height. But if that's a desire, we can always just say 90 feet max height in the community and see what happens. But I don't know how that's going to play out, not only immediately, but then as time goes on. There's no way of telling.
Alderman Solinsky?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Alderman Taylor that he's concerned about the problems with these poles might infringe on the certain districts. I don't know if this should be included in this because it's an agreement with them, but it would be nice to have staff be able to contact the aldermen in those districts just to know where they're proposing to put them, that we could work with them if we have ideas, because we're involved in our districts a little more than, I say, city staff would be, so we can give them our guidance that we actually know where they're coming up, and it's not just there all of a sudden and the alderman, where'd this come from, and have to explain it to the residents. So I don't know if that language can be brought into this, or is that just good communication through us as a council, or I guess is a question for Attorney Captain.
What we require of this company, we have to require for every utility. The role of I mean, if the Common Council wants to be involved in where every pole is placed,
Maybe a poll.
it gets political, it doesn't. You don't want it in front of your house, and it's,
A lot of times the
that's
best
not
answer
really the
is
way it
you
works.
tell your constituents it is a utility, just like any other kind of utility.
I don't think that's the question. The question was,
Yeah, and I think,
work with them on placement of it.
I think the attorney then had mentioned if you did that for
Would be
this
every single
company,
pole?
you'd be doing that for Menasha Utilities, We
Could we do a height
Energies.
restriction then? If it's a pole over 90 feet, then it comes to a alderman, because there's not many 90-foot poles going into the city. Or 120-foot poles. I just want to make it so the aldermen get aware of this, where they're going. Big, huge poles like this, because this isn't just your average. Yeah.
That's why I brought it here.
Yes, and I thank you for that.
Because otherwise the application came in,
Uh-huh.
and technically what happens is 60 days. That's it. We have to approve it, the permit or the request, or if we don't, and I think I had mentioned to the Common Council, I actually had indicated a denial and then, put some stuff in there denying it. But if an application technically comes in and it says we're putting it here, unless we have a darn good reason for it not going there, and I can tell you that we, well, if I pick one of them that I have in mind right now, there is no darn good reason why
Okay.
it would go up. And that would be without,
Any council, yes. So I just hope that our staff, maybe if this isn't an iffy issue, when it comes in the future with future polls, and that we'd be in contact, but I guess on this motion, that's my only question.
I did want to mention one other thing. There is if there are polls, like for the next polls, or attachments, whatever they are, there can be a requirement that rather than putting a pole up so that you have extra poles, that if there's a place that works to have an attachment, that's what has to be done, it must be an attachment and not a new pole, so that we're, not adding all these new poles. And that actually is already part of the legal requirements. The company is supposed to be looking to see if there is a place to attach, and of course, based on their current configuration and how their engineers looked at it, there were no locations in the right-of-way in those spots for them to attach to, so they're putting up new poles. But in the future, as they come lower, it's expected that there will be poles that they will be attaching to.
Alderman Collier?
Boy, sometimes I'm not a nice guy, but tonight I feel like it's Christmas. The law says you're coming, you're gonna be here. I hope you can get away with the fewest amount of towers, and if you gotta put in the tower one, the bigger ones, unless, maybe that's the answer. As far as coming back and asking me if you can put it in this block or that block or there, I want no part of that. I got faith in the people that work here to represent the city and do the best they can with agreements that you guys will have with us. The state already gave you the permission to come forward. I know you're coming. I hope it's at a later time, but you're coming, and everybody should realize that. And to try to make it harder for you would be bad for us and for you. I hope somehow we can come to an agreement and go forward tonight. My only other question is, if you use anything that's utility poles, do they get a kickback? Or do they get anything?
Probably a bad word to say.
No.
Well,
Actually,
do they
no.
give something for using the
they
Menasha
get-
utility
do they
poles?
Well, I'll tell you, no, that's a good question, actually, because.
Just don't use kickback.
Yes.
Cash
So
flow.
the way I heard it, do we rent the space on those utility poles? And
Yeah.
yes, we do rent that space. So if, and for We Energies attachments, for instance, in the city of Appleton, there's a couple of them that we will be giving We Energies it's upwards of 2,000 per pole attachment. But I'd rather see that go to a Menasha utility
Yes.
than a WPS or a whatever utility. You know what I mean? I'd rather see that here than somewhere else.
And if you ever had to bring anything downtown, would you look at putting something off a building so it's up higher and not on the ground level?
That would take it out of the right of way.
Okay,
But
so-
when we get down to the ground level, I mean, we do some good stuff with streetlight attachments. I mean, we can even get more narrow. There's a couple of them that was just an antenna and pretty narrow stuff. So we would work to mimic what you have in place and go at it from there. Incidentally, the people doing the install, you guys will be voting for a manufacturer right here in town. Faith Technologies is doing all of our installs in this area, so.
Thank you. But I appreciate everything. I hope we weren't too hard on you.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I just hope I get that unanimous again.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not even sure what the amendment was at this point, so if I'm not germane, just call me out on it. First off, I shared the concern with the 120-foot pole location out over by Goodwill, just only from the perspective of aesthetics, because it's such a robust pole, in a spot that we just had all done, and it's a pretty clean area, and
Sure.
for my visual perspective, I'd like to see it further off the street than what it is. The other thing is that I'm not sure that a lot of folks understand the relationship that a utility has to have with the PSC. And when we talk about safety concerns with these poles, the PSC relies a lot on the engineering of the utility to be able to use engineered systems that are going to be able to stand up to the environment that they're in. And you have to have confidence in that. I mean, they have a lot of engineers on staff that design these things and decide that something's appropriate or not. And they didn't need to come to us to ask to develop this standard with us. I think they could have just put this in, and I appreciate them coming here to do this. And the only thing I would ask is that when you decide an area that you identify that you're going to put something, that if there is an alternate location that we do, from staff and from them, that we do research that and decide if we can get that off the roadway, like if we could do it on utility property or something like that, that we just look at that and we make the best decision internally.
I think if you would have seen the regional locations for some of these, I mean, 120-foot pole, I think one was in a residential, I can't remember exactly where, over by 3rd Street, a little bit further. So, yeah.
It was right next to Alliance Industries.
So,
on Iowa.
with that said, I think I even came in and said, this is a bad location. I mean, we know my planning background says I kick these things back. I mean, I really do. So we're not going to put them in bad locations. We want to make sure it works.
Like I see a 120-foot pole, that's a big pole. That's the height of a 12-story building.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pole. And that kind of sticks out when it's above trees and everything else, and it makes an impact on a neighborhood, but you're not putting them in residential areas. So if they're in commercial, industrial type areas, you don't have the impact that you would have otherwise. So, and if you can do the other things in your residential areas on light poles and things like that, I think it's a sound approach to what we're doing. So, my only concern was that, you have the ability, the right to do this. The other thing is, to me, anytime you enhance, especially right now, any kind of communication abilities within a community, you're improving the ability for folks to have internet that increases your city's marketability, for one thing, you know, to say that we have the high-speed capability within your city. If you deny technology, you're going to deny our next group of folks that would be living here as well. So I support this, and I appreciate you coming in and giving us the opportunity to help generate a standard for what our expectations are in the city. I do struggle with the 120-foot pole heights. I'm going to be completely honest with you,
Sure.
in that we don't have them in areas.
Everyone's struggling throughout the state, and that's why we're starting to look at possible lower heights.
And I appreciate that, and I just soon see lower pole heights, mainly from perspective of, one, they're tall, B, the base is a very large base. And the other thing is I personally, I like to see them all fed underground. Because if we're gonna have wires, overhead wires coming to them, that's gonna also attract attention to what that pole is.
That's my personal preference too.
And if we can get it in the agreement that we have underground service to all of these, that would certainly be my preference.
I have had a couple communities that did not want underground, and only for the reason that they said we already have too much in-ground. They didn't want a fiber optic line or an electric line run to these also. They wanted it overhead. Don't know why. I won't even bring up which community that was, but they have said it.
I definitely am not that guy personally. So one, I think they're more reliable if they're underground, and I think aesthetically they're a lot better. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can put the underground requirement.
Yeah, we can. If that's desired.
Into that. That'd be my perspective, and that anytime we identify an area that we research an alternate that would work within your same footprint that you need to make that pole work. Thank you.
Any further discussion, Alderman Taylor?
On the amendment, I think it's a good test for this company. They're coming into our city. Let's see if they're willing to work with us. And let's see if they really appreciate and respect the safety of Menasha and the people of Menasha that use these roads every day, and get these poles out of the right-of-way, out of the line of fire for the traffic. And I think that's very important, because I don't want to see some flowers or a wreath put in Menasha. Every time I see them on a highway, I don't like it. It's a sad situation, and I don't want to see a wreath out there on Highway 47 or some flowers that something happened. And we have that ability right here. It's not going to restrict this company from doing business in our community or anything. They're going to make a minor adjustment to the pole, and it's a good thing. It gets it out of the way. It's an obstacle that's not there. And again, you never know what you can prevent, but it's a good opportunity to move these back a little bit. And I appreciate a vote on the amendment as a good test of faith for this company. And then let's see what happens.
Alderman Spencer?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one quick question. A lot of the dialogue tonight has been about the aesthetics of the poles, and I think I heard something earlier that I just want to see if I got it right.
Sure.
Because I think it's an important point. Did you say that you would design the poles or maybe color the poles so it fit the aesthetics of the area? I'm thinking like downtown.
I can give you a couple examples. Lake Geneva has a color called Lake Geneva Green, and that's what they wanted it painted. So they had a particular metal pole in downtown area, and we wanted to match. Okay. City of Ashland has and they had a specific black color. I mean, there's all kinds of shades. Essentially, it was black, but they gave us the exact color palette that they wanted that pole painted. Plus, we had to mimic the poles that they had on Main Street. Okay, so that's what we will do. I think when you get into areas that are standard wood poles still, and you're not converted them over, and I know a number of locations that are converting their utility over and burying them in ground or doing other kind of decorative pole enhancements. Like in Green Bay, there's a few areas that they're converting over to a decorative pole. They're getting us the schematics of what it is that they put in ground, and we're going to mimic that pole.
Okay.
So yes. If that's the desire when we're going through and you guys know that something's converting over, we will match that color and that pole type. But
yeah, that's do we need to have that in the agreement, or is that just a matter of verbal agreement?
I've got three things here that we may want to discuss after we get done with this amendment. That's one of them.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
And we can ask if that needs to move forward.
You want me to hang that amendment on for the,
Alderman Nichols is next.
I don't know if my discussion is about the amendment or
I
not.
think we've
anymore.
kind of let everyone kind of go a little bit beyond just the amendment here. So
Okay.
as long as it's about this agreement in general, we'll call it germane at this point.
All right. I think the fact that a representative from this company is here this evening clearly demonstrates their desire to work with us on this project. Since we've spent a lot of time talking about the nuts and bolts of an agreement, I'd like to talk about the alternative of no agreement. Could you tell us about the ability your company holds without an agreement?
Yeah, in fact, I can. The city of Appleton, we started going down the agreement path process, and they decided that essentially we're working with them. They felt that their utility ordinance was pretty solid and that they didn't need to do an agreement process. So we've already got three approved polls in Appleton without an agreement process. So some communities wish to have the agreement in place, some don't. We always offer that up. It varies so widely. Again, I've visited 120 odd jurisdictions. I'd say the majority of the large jurisdictions probably lean toward agreement. Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, Appleton did not. However, Neenah, Menasha, De Pere, and Green Bay has, and I believe Two Rivers and Manitowoc may wish to go the agreement route. Stevens Point did not do the agreement route. They know they have their workings within the city, and their rules regarding regulation of utilities hold pretty true, that they're comfortable with it. And in all honesty, we go into every community the same way. We sit down. Every time a new poll comes in, we're going to sit down and go over the details. We're going to look for the best site possible. We're going to do that whole process regardless of agreement. So some people feel real comfortable, some people don't, and it changes.
Is your company obligated to reach out to the municipality and work out pole placement if there's not an agreement in place?
No, we're not obligated to. Even, I guess, the agreement kind of solidifies that, but so far we're doing it anyways. I mean, if you talk to any of the places that I've been, I can give you the list and people that I've been to. We are going to go in and we want to be different, a different type of utility. We don't want to be the one that just goes in and bullies our way around. We're not doing that. Our owner, again, we're a company that's owned by one individual. He's very clear on making that happen. In fact, he was the one that gave the directive at the beginning of March to drop pole heights from 120 potentially down to 90 feet to make that work. So he's very interactive with us. He wants us to become part of the communities, and I think it's been working pretty well, and that's what we're going to do.
And I think it's admirable that your company has chosen to
We're trying to set the standard for this type of utility.
to use that standard as your business model. The fact remains that they're not required to do that, and by entering into a license agreement, we are requesting that you enter into that conversation with the city each and every time.
It just lays the ground rules out. I mean, it puts it up in the air. So if you feel your ordinances are not as tight, the agreement is probably a great way to go.
Yes.
Like I said, we don't even have to go through or offer up the agreement, but we're doing that here. I mean, we do want to work within the community, so it's going to be a long time thing. This will take me to retirement, I'm sure.
Attorney Captain, you mentioned that we have a permitting process here in Menasha, and he referenced other municipalities that have ordinances regulating utility work of this sort. So where do we fall in that spectrum?
We just have the permitting process.
So in my mind, that's all the more reason to support entering into this licensing agreement so that we guarantee ourselves an opportunity to participate in the placement of poles in our community.
Alderman Taylor?
I think there was a motion and then an amendment, and we're getting lost here, but I would like to add to my amendment that that there be added to, service would be underground service to the pole on my amendment.
The attorney said we should have that as a separate amendment.
I'm just adding it to the amendment. That's the full
Okay.
amendment.
You can't, well, you have an amendment and a second on that amendment, so you would have to withdraw the original amendment and create a new amendment. if-
Right. I'll withdraw the amendment, and
So we're going to get rid of the first amendment,
okay,
and you're going to create a different motion, okay?
right. Motion would be that for the first 3 polls here, we see if they can accommodate the suggestions that were made here tonight, and that there be underground service run to each pole.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Do you want those 3 locations to come back for approval?
Yes.
Seeing if they can accommodate this kind of
Let's
solution?
see what we get from this company,
So-
if
so
they're
you
willing
want
to
the-
work with the community for safety.
So you want the first 3 locations to be approved by the Common Council,
Yes,
and you also want them to have underground service.
to each pole.
Okay. Is there a second? So there's a motion, a second, it's Alex, to amend the, what is it? Well, the motion for the master licensing agreement to include that the first 3 polls locations are approved by the Common Council and that they have underground service. Okay. James, are you finished?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
My question to the attorney was, Wisconsin Technology Networking LLC. I've never seen an LLC on a telecommunications company like this, and that's kind of worrisome as far as from the LLC end of it. These seem to be, they come and go.
So I'm not sure what the question is.
If she's comfortable with this company being an LLC.
If you'd like to comment?
We don't really have a choice if it's a business that's licensed to do, to operate in the state of Wisconsin, and they provide the required insurances and things like that. It's just like any other agreement that we would have with a company.
Yeah, I've
But
just
they
never-
are, I did check, and they are licensed in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, good. I mean, you just don't see it with Verizon LLC or AT&T LLC, and we all know that LLCs are they pop up here and there for different projects. So I was just kind of asking that question. Thank you.
Alderman Collier?
I don't know if you really want to push the envelope. You asked this company and gentleman to go out of the way and work with us on 3 towers, and now you want to make it so that they got to be underground, where Alderman Benner brought up the proposal or the question where if it's possible to put it in the agreement already. By adding this to your amendment, I think you're hurting your amendment and making it almost impossible to vote for, because I don't think he can go that far to say that they would put it underground. Just to get the 3 moved and to work with us is something big, but then to add more restrictions and more restrictions when we asked them to consider the underground. So I think you're weighing a little more on this than should be. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Alderman Nichols had a point of inquiry, and I cut her, I did.
What is a point of inquiry?
She would like clarification, I believe, on what the motion was, but if you would allow her to speak, because I did not recognize her after.
Can the clerk read the motion?
Let's find out what her point of inquiry is first.
I would like the clerk to reread the motion, please.
Okay. Well, that was easy enough.
Well, I'm giving that courtesy to Alderman Taylor, and then I'll move forward with my question, my inquiry.
Moved by Alderman Taylor, seconded by Alderman Zelinski, that the first 3 polls location be approved by the Common Council and that there is underground service. I'm sorry, to each poll, service to each poll.
Thank you for rereading that. My question is how I would go about separating that question, because I can support one but not the other. One half of that, but not the other half.
You can make a motion to separate that. And that would just ask, and you wouldn't even need a second to do
Great.
that. We
I
would
would
separate that.
appreciate that question be divided.
Okay. We do that all the time on bills that are being paid, on all kinds of things. So we ask things to be separated all the time. That would be a germane motion.
What I heard was Alderman Benner wanted to have the underground service. And I heard this gentleman say that they will provide that underground service to any community that asks for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do provide the underground service that the community is asking us to do in-ground to the poles. The only thing it kind of gets a little tricky is if the pole's in a location that there's all kinds of overhead lines and it's just, more efficient to do an overhead line, maybe that's a desire of the community at that point in some of those locations. But again, in-ground, we can do that.
Thank you.
I only wonder if there's a situation where it may not be possible in one case or another, but we can cross that road as we go toward it, I guess.
Well, what the motion was that at least the way I understood it was for the first 3 poles that they would have underground service, not necessarily all the poles because of the way it was attached together. So when we separate it, it would be that there'd be underground service for those 3 poles that the locations are determined. And we'd have another motion that those 3 poles locations be approved by the Common Council. So, Alderman Nichols? Is that the way you understood it? Is that your question?
I understood it as separating the question into bringing those 3 locations back to the council, and the other question being whether or not we can incorporate this underground option into the agreement.
Okay. Oh, to each pole or to the? Okay. I need clarification then on what your motion was, Alderman Taylor. Just these 3. Okay.
Okay, then I'll remove my separation,
Request?
and I'll
Okay.
bring the underground thing up later.
Okay, so the motion, the amendment that's on the floor is that the Common Council approve the location of the first 3 poles and that those 3 poles have underground service to each pole. Alderman Taylor?
And all this is based on is safety for the community. It's just to get the pole out of the right-of-way, a little further off the right-of-way, and that's all it is. There's no politics, there's no skin in the game here. All it is pure safety for the community. And if we can prevent something, that's what we're up here for. That's why we take an oath of office, to help protect the community.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote on the amendment. Oh.
Will, you want to get this?
Let's see if I can do it.
Wow.
Somebody's here. I'm not gonna be here.
That's true. Okay.
Motion fails on roll call, 3-5.
Okay, so the motion that's on the floor now is to approve I keep forgetting what it's called, to approve the master licensing agreement. I think Alderman Nichols wanted to make I should say, there were three things that we kind of talked about here that we might want to have included in the proposal. One was that they attempt to match the existing poles that are in the area already. And the attorney said she didn't really need a motion for that because that was standard policy with what you're doing, and we would just incorporate that in.
Yep.
If someone disagrees with that, let us know. That we would have underground service to the poles. And it sounds like that is something we can incorporate in. If you'd like to give us direction, we can take a motion on that. And the other one is if we have a preference of pole heights. And it sounded like there was a preference, if possible, to go with the 90-foot poles, and we would like a motion on that if that is the preference. And there may be others, I don't know, but those were the three that I had noticed. Okay, we'll start over. Okay, now we should work. Alderman Benner.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we have a maximum pole height of 90 feet.
Does that include the original three, or is that just for new poles outside of those?
If I have to ask Brent, are we locked in on the 120 that we have already?
Well,
Or not?
there's 120s and then there's 90s, but what I keep forgetting, there's about 5 feet of like lightning rod and all kinds of other little ancillary things that extend beyond the 90 feet.
I'm looking
But it's
at
never
I'm looking
5
at the
feet.
nominal pole height.
Yeah. So however you want to word it, that's fine.
Okay.
The nominal pole height of 90 feet is.
Yeah, it's usually 90 and not more than 5 feet of all those other things.
Okay.
So you could say 95 and be good.
So if we did make that motion, that may change the three locations that we have now.
Yeah, and it's uncertain until our RF engineers kind of get in and figure out where these poles are connecting, because I show you that whole scattering of what's happening in Appleton and then the poles down in Menasha. They all have to be kind of synced up, if you will.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that.
So it may multiply out the poles, may not.
Okay.
I don't have an answer to that.
Well, and the thing is, this is still our standard agreement,
Yeah.
is really what it is, so.
Okay. Mike did second it.
All right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear what that meant then. Alderman Taylor and Alderman Collier, if you have things to discuss, we should discuss them as a group. We shouldn't be
Aaron,
having.
you want to go across the aisle there and do it?
But I
It's
was.
always going on there, but that's okay with you.
The things
had
that
a
I
question
asked,
for him, I asked him. There's no council rules on that, you know it.
I didn't say there were.
It's always one-sided up here, always. And the attorney thinks it's funny. I think she always does, because it's on this side of the aisle.
Alderman Kramer.
Have you put up 90-foot poles in De Pere, was it? Is that correct?
Currently, we do not have any of the 90-foot poles.
No
up there.
90s, okay.
Yeah, there's 120 that's going up in Black Creek. And then Janesville, or excuse me, just outside of Madison, there's another 120. We don't have any of the 90-footers yet.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. And could you tell us again what's happening in Appleton? What size pole they've agreed to thus far?
Well, we don't, excuse me. In Appleton, it's a little bit strange. They have one transport pole proposed for Appleton, okay? The adjacent communities seem to be carrying a lot of the 120s or the 90-footers, okay? Of which, of those 120s and 90-footers, we don't have, excuse me, there's one 90-footer approved in the town of Buchanan by the Lowe's, and that's not built yet. But within the city of Appleton, okay, we've got 22 poles. They're all the 75-foot and under, all the way to streetlight attachments, to We Energy poles within the city. So that's kind of the whole mix of what's going on there.
Okay, thank you.
the motion that's on the floor is the height of the poles, to incorporate into the master agreement, the height of the poles be nominal 90 feet or less.
Okay,
Something,
with any of the ancillary,
yeah, nominal 90 feet.
Okay.
Or something to that effect. We'll
I think we're all
figure
understand
out
what
the
that
correct
means.
wording. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because there's a few rods that go above it.
Sure. So no further discussion. Could we have a roll call on that amendment, please?
Motion carries on roll call 6-2.
Unless I hear objection, we will incorporate the underground utilities and fiber to the poles and matching of the poles within the agreement. So there's no objection to those items. So then we have on the floor the amended motion to approve the master licensing agreement with a nominal pole height of 90 feet. Alderman Taylor?
Where did the underground come in now? Where did you put that?
Unless I heard objection, we will incorporate that into the agreement.
Doesn't have to be a motion.
It doesn't need to be. If you'd like to, you can do that.
I'll make a motion to have the underground service put to the pole.
Would you like to have them also include the matching, attempt to match the existing poles or not? Okay.
Yeah,
So
and to match the existing poles.
apparently the attorney didn't like that I said that. Attorney Captain?
No, I just need clarification. I need the exact language so that I know what you're talking about, because as I understood it, it's likely that underground service is possible, but if it's not possible, then, I mean, normally we would include language that says in the agreement that that's what the preference is, but if it's not possible, they would have to demonstrate that it's not possible, and then it would be overhead. That's normally how we would draft it, but that's not the motion I heard. The motion I heard was that it shall be. So if that's what you want, that's fine. I just need to know.
Okay. Alderman Taylor, is that what you'd like it? It shall be underground, or that, what did you say? If unless they demonstrate that it's not possible to be underground, it will be underground. So, Alderman Taylor, so you want it to say shall be underground? Okay. Okay, so we'd like to amend that service shall be underground to the poles, and that we attempt to match existing poles in the area. Is there a second? Oh, okay. So there's a motion and a second on that amendment.
And I need clarification on that one as well. When we say match the poles, is that, as I understood it, Mobility was indicating that they match the poles if there's an attachment, if they're putting up a pole that's in the downtown area, such that there is something else to match, like a decorative pole. But the poles that they're putting up, or proposing to put up, the 3 poles, I'm not sure
Nothing
what
in the
they
air
would
to
be
match.
matching, I guess. What is it that they would be matching? I don't know.
Did you? Oh, I don't know why you can't. We'll oops. I cut you off then.
No,
There you
I'm
go.
not. I've just about had it with the wordsmithing tonight up here with the obstruction of this, and, you know, if the city puts tutus on all the poles, fine. We match the tutu on the pole, so, you know, that's where it's at. I thought that gentleman expressed to us clearly what the matching was with the city of Ashland and the city of Lake Geneva, so that's why that's on there. But we want to just keep obstructing, that's okay.
Attorney Captain?
And again, if I can ask for clarification, that is what I do. I'm a wordsmither. I'm the one drafting the agreement, and I certainly don't want to draft something that somebody later says, that's not what I meant. So if I'm assuming that, or at least the way that I would draft it has to do with if there is a particular style or pole type, color, et cetera, that the city has in an area under which a pole is going up, that it would be matched, but otherwise it would not be. And I am not aware of the 3 poles that are being proposed to be installed. I am not aware of any decorative color or anything like that, but if there is, I need to know that.
Alderman Collier?
The first 3 poles are gonna be in areas that have nothing by them, no tutus, no extra coloring. Let them go up. Let's go on with this and get them, it's gonna happen, just let it happen.
Alderman Spencer?
Well, I think there might be a precedent for a color match on those poles that are going up, because all the poles are nearby them, or nearest to them are brown, right? So they would just match the other utility poles. That was my that's my understanding of it, yes.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
well-
the default color, if I'm understanding correctly, is just like call it a utility brown.
Yeah, well, the standard color on the poles, all the 120s are the same type of pole. There's no way to match those down to your street light type poles. So those tall transport poles, they come in the standard powder blue or the stainless, steel color, okay? We can color them to match. Oshkosh asked us to paint them black, so that's what we're gonna do for the tall transports. So we can go with any other color that's in that area if that's desired. I think there's, over by the one in Goodwill, there's a rust brown, kind of an oxidized rust pole near it. It doesn't matter to us what color you want them. We can match it to whatever you'd like.
So we could have a default color, and then any other color would be a match.
Yeah, you could default color to that in the city.
Okay.
I think a lot of yours are standard powder blue, or you see the one right down here by the bridge.
Okay.
That's a pretty tall pole, and it's, I think, a light blue or
So
something.
that's the way I would
Sky blue.
suggest wording the document, is that the default would be the standard powdered blue.
Okay, well, the motion right now is to match existing poles. And I guess I was looking at as if there were decorative poles in the area, it would match the decorative poles. The streetlights in the area by Piggly Wiggly, I believe, are green. So I'm not sure if it means green then in that area for these large ones, but, and I'm not sure what's at 441, and those I
Yeah,
think
I
are
couldn't
silver,
tell.
actually.
Yeah. Well, there's like a rust, one that's oxidized rust.
Oh,
out
that's
by
the
there.
ATC pole.
Yeah, the big
Sure.
ATC pole, excuse me.
So maybe we just want to include to match decorative existing poles. Is that agreeable to you, Alderman Taylor? Okay. So I'm going to read the motion again. So the motion that these services shall be underground and the poles are to match existing decorative poles in the area. Okay. So that's the amendment at this point. Alderman Benner?
This is only for these 3 poles, or is this for our guidelines?
This is our guidelines
All
for
right.
everything.
I just want to tell you that my intent, and maybe I didn't articulate it very well with the underground feed, is that that's our standard. If we have a pole that we have overhead service directly adjacent to the pole that we're doing, and the most practical way of doing it is to do it overhead, I would say that that's the thing to do, but, you don't want to dig 5 feet over underground or something if that's our thought. But-
Sometimes if you go underground, maybe the city does not want you
Yeah,
tearing
maybe.
a swath through the
Right.
road to to
But
connect it,
again,
you know what I mean?
The spirit and the intent of what I was saying is that that's our guideline, that's our standard, it's not,
The motion on the floor is shall.
I understand that, and I'm just sharing what the spirit and the intent of.
We've had to work these around, electrical lines around fire hydrants, and sometimes if it's not going to work, sometimes you do have to go overhead for safety in those areas, but.
So that was the spirit and the intent of what my comment was.
Alderman Taylor?
I heard your comment on shall. You want that to say must.
We can craft a motion that basically the standard be underground, and that's what the attorney was saying, unless they can demonstrate that it's not practical or something like that to do that.
It's usually the city that tells us that they'd rather have it overground. Sure, above ground, overhead, yep.
Or we could say the standard will be underground. That gives a little bit of leeway. I don't know how you'd like to see it. Why don't you write the motion that you would like here? Okay, so the motion is the standard will be, that the standard be underground. And that we match existing decorative poles in the area if they exist. Okay. Does everyone have the motion now? Okay. The standard will be underground service, and that we will match existing decorative poles in the area if they exist. Okay. We all good with that? We'll take a roll call vote on that amendment. Did you know you were going to be here this long tonight?
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
Okay. Are there any other amendments? Alderman Taylor?
Mr. Mayor, it's been kicked around the block a lot here. Are they required to move those 3 poles?
At this point, no. But he did express a willingness to come and speak to us about doing that. The requirement being that they do have to be within right-of-way for him to consider that.
Otherwise, so he is coming back to talk to us about that?
He wouldn't be coming to the council, but he would be working with staff to
I'd just like
do
to,
that.
I want to sleep at night, and this pole on Highway 47 to me is just a complete safety obstacle for the traffic out there, and I don't want to see someone hurt or killed. And I want to make a motion that, and there's a lot of property out there owned by the state of Wisconsin, and so I would like to make the motion that the pole on Appleton Road, State 47, be moved to the west of the sidewalk.
I don't know if we have the ability to do that.
No, I'll tell you, if that's state highway right away on the other side of the sidewalk, and if there's a motion from this board to push that one onto state DOT, I believe it's DOT, right? It'd probably be DOT. If there's a motion to move that onto the DOT, if I got that motion from here, I can take that to the DOT with a chance to get a permit onto DOT property.
Okay, and
so we can do that.
so state highways are typically considered right-of-way, and it.
Yep. And we got a relationship working with the DOT
Okay.
now. Robert Fasik, who's the statewide utility coordinator for the DOT, he's only asked that if that happens, he wants it directly from
Okay.
the council to do that. So if that's a direction, I'm perfectly fine with taking that
That was my
to the
motion.
DOT.
Okay. So is it okay to mix that with the?
That's fine.
Okay. So there's, I just wanted to make sure that we could approve the licensing agreement with that one location.
But realizing that's not before you, it's.
And
it's at
the
state
attorney
DOT.
said that was fine. So right now, there's a motion on the floor, I forget exactly,
To pole on Appleton Road, State 47, move to west of sidewalk.
okay,
State DOT
okay.
right-of-way.
So the amendment is that the pole on Highway 47 be moved to west of the sidewalk in state DOT right away. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, could we have roll call vote on that then, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 6-2.
Okay. Any other amendments? Okay, so on the floor right now is the master licensing agreement with the one amendment that that particular pole. Well, the motion was, where did it go? Oh, it's down there, that's why. Okay, so there was a motion to approve the master licensing agreement, amended to include authorizing staff to enter into a licensing agreement with Mobility upon terms and conditions acceptable to Menasha Utilities, and amended to incorporate 90-foot pole heights and underground services and matching existing poles in the area, and that the pole on Highway 47 be moved to the west of the sidewalk, still within DOT right-of-way. That's a very long motion. Alderman Zelinski?
Do we have the motion forward yet, or?
That's the motion.
Okay, okay. Now that we're finally on the motion, I can ask a question legally. For this, on section 5 of this agreement, there's a one-time fee of $500 to cover administration costs. What would that entitle? Is that for them to pay to it? This is for Attorney Captain, I would presume, but what's that $500 administration cost?
What page are you on?
I think we're paying you for the use of your attorney's time drafting the agreement.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
question.
It's not always included, but for some, that's in this one, which is fine.
Okay. Yeah.
More than got our money's worth.
Second question, I saw that this was going through some legislation about right-of-ways and property. Would that legislation affect this agreement at all? Or I don't know how that's going along, or, no?
No, it's something different. It has to do with the towers.
Towers, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's my final, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, could we have a roll call vote? I'm not repeating that again.
Motion carried on roll call, 7-1.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate that. I don't know.
Get my unanimous. I don't want it now.
It did pass though, so.
Yes. Excellent.
If you want to grab your cord, that's fine
Yeah.
while we're continuing on. So item K is ordinances and resolutions. We have resolution 4. It's the preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers in the Silver Birch Estates subdivision. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kramer?
I'll make a motion to approve preliminary resolution R-04-17 declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 Wisconsin statutes, Silver Birch Estates.
Second.
So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I think we already understood last time what this was all about. Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote? After making you sit here all that time, Tim?
Motion carried on roll call, 8-0.
Item N is public comments on any matter listed on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make a comment at this time? Seeing no one, do we have a motion to recess? Alderman Benner.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn into closed session. Oh, we're going to recess. I'm sorry.
first.
Yep, we'll recess into committee. Sorry.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Opposed? We stand at recess. Thank you.